My daughter lied to my face. "Dad, Hawaii is cancelled. Money problems." I believed her. Then I saw the Facebook photos. A month later, she begged me for $100,000. I handed her something else. She fainted. I still remember the weight of that envelope in my hands, the embossed seal of my attorney's office catching the afternoon light as I slid it across the coffee table. Amanda's fingers trembled as she reached for it, expecting a check. The color drained from her face as she read the first page. "You transferred your house?" she whispered, voice breaking. "To a charity?" "But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to where it started." The phone startled me on a quiet Tuesday morning. 3 months into retirement, I still jumped at unexpected calls, as if some client emergency demanded my attention. Old habits. "Dad!" Amanda's voice bubbled with excitement. "What are you doing for your birthday next month?" I glanced at my calendar, mostly blank except for a dental cleaning. Nothing special, maybe golf with Rich from the office. "Cancel it," she said. "Jason and I want to take you to Maui. A whole week, my treat for your 70th. The invitation hung in the air like something too delicate to touch. After Margaret died 8 years ago, Amanda and I had settled into a rhythm of holiday visits and occasional Sunday dinners. Close, but with invisible boundaries. This was different. "Maui," I repeated, my voice embarrassingly thin. "You always said you wanted to see Hawaii. We found this amazing resort right on Kaanapali Beach. There's a tour to Molokini Crater, where the snorkeling is incredible." That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my computer until 2 a.m. researching restaurants, reading about the road to Hana, and studying snorkeling guides. I ordered a guidebook with overnight shipping and downloaded a Hawaiian language app. For the first time since signing my retirement papers, I felt a spark. The next morning, I drove to Nordstrom and spent 2 hours deliberating between Hawaiian shirts. The young salesman smiled as I held each one up to the mirror. "Special occasion?" "Birthday trip with my daughter," I replied, hearing the pride in my voice. I bought 3 shirts, each more colorful than the last, still wrapped in crisp tissue paper. Back home, I made reservations. The Molokini Crater tour was $189 per person. I booked 3 spots without hesitation, carefully noting the confirmation number in my planner. I found a sunset dinner cruise with live music, and reserved that too. I circled dates on my calendar in red ink, each mark feeling like a promise. Amanda had been through rough patches before. The divorce 5 years ago that I helped her navigate with a $20,000 loan she never repaid. The emergency roof repair on her first house. The down payment assistance when she and Jason found their forever home. I never questioned these needs. Isn't that what fathers do? Each time, I told myself we were building something together. Trust, closeness, family. I hung the Hawaiian shirts in my closet, tags still attached, and placed the reef-safe sunscreen on my bathroom counter where I'd see it each morning. Tangible reminders of something to look forward to. On my nightstand, I placed the guidebook. Pages already dog-eared and marked with colorful tabs. The itinerary took shape. Arrive Monday, settle in. First dinner together at sunset. Tuesday, the road to Hana, with packed lunches. Wednesday, our Molokini Crater tour. I'd already downloaded the waiver forms and checked the camera battery. Thursday through Sunday remained flexible, but I had ideas. A coffee plantation tour, the sunrise at Haleakala, maybe even a helicopter ride if I could work up the courage. Each night before bed, I checked the weather forecast for Maui, though our trip was still weeks away. The temperatures hovered in the perfect mid-80s, with gentle trade winds and minimal chance of rain. I was ready to be included in Amanda's life again. ready to build memories that didn't revolve around financial rescues, ready for a promise that wouldn't break. I should have known better. The call came 3 weeks before our departure date. I was reviewing my packing checklist, pencil tapping against the coffee table, when Amanda's name lit up my phone screen. "Hey, sweetheart. I was just thinking about you," I said, smiling. "I found a great place for our second night dinner. Ocean view, live music." "Dad." Her voice cut through my enthusiasm. That careful tone. The one she'd used when telling me about her divorce, about the roof leak, about the down payment shortfall. "We can't do Hawaii." My pencil stilled mid-tap. "What happened?" "Jason and I are downsizing. The economy's unstable, and his department might face cuts. We're tightening our belts." Her words came out rehearsed, each one placed precisely. "We can't justify a luxury vacation right now." I looked at my living room, temporarily transformed into vacation headquarters, guidebooks splayed open, sunscreen bottles lined up like soldiers, a new wide-brimmed hat perched on the armchair. "I understand, honey." I kept my voice steady. "These things happen. Smart of you, too, to be proactive." "Thanks, Dad." Relief flooded her voice. "I was worried you'd be upset." "Of course not. Financial responsibility comes first." The irony wasn't lost on me, considering the pattern of our relationship. "Do you need help? With the belt tightening?" No, she said quickly. "We're fine. We're just cutting unnecessary expenses." "Well, I'm proud of you for making tough choices," I said, meaning it, despite the disappointment sitting heavy in my chest. "Maybe we'll reschedule when things stabilize." "Definitely," she agreed. "Maybe next time we could even coordinate with Jason's folks, too. They love Hawaii." Something in her tone changed with that last statement. A slight uplift, almost cheerful. I dismissed it as relief that I'd taken the news well. After we hung up, I sat motionless for several minutes, staring at the guidebook's glossy photos of palm trees and azure waters. Then I moved with purpose. I boxed up the shirts for return. I pulled up the Molokini tour website and navigated to the cancellation page. 3 clicks, confirmation email, done. The sunset dinner cruise cancellation followed, then the hotel reservation. By evening, every trace of the trip was erased, except for the guidebook. That I slid into my bookshelf between retirement planning guides and a medical reference book. Sitting at my kitchen table that night, I calculated the numbers that defined my life. The house, $650,000 with no mortgage. Investment portfolio, just over $800,000. Savings accounts, $175,000. Annual pension and Social Security, $78,000. Enough for a comfortable retirement, if I was careful. Then I tallied another column. Amanda's emergencies over 8 years. College fund supplement, $35,000. Divorce attorney, $20,000. First home repairs, $18,000. Down payment help, $45,000. Car replacement after accident, $22,000. Various smaller emergencies, roughly $30,000. Nearly $170,000. Not counted as loans, never repaid, just helping when she needed it. Part of me felt proud. I'd been there for my daughter when she needed me. Another part whispered uncomfortable questions. Was I helping or enabling? Was I her father or her financial safety net? I'd always justified these transfers as investments in our relationship. Each check brought phone calls, gratitude, promises of dinners together. But those dinners grew infrequent, the calls shorter. The pattern was clear in retrospect. Crisis, request, transfer, brief reconnection, silence until the next crisis. My retirement changed the equation. With no new income beyond pension and investments, each withdrawal now came from a finite pool. My financial advisor had been clear. You need to preserve capital for potential long-term care. Medical costs alone could easily reach 6 figures. I closed my spreadsheet and shut off my laptop. The house felt too quiet. Outside, the desert night had turned cool, stars sharp against the darkness. "She's being responsible," I said aloud, trying to convince myself. This is what I raised her to do. But as I prepared for bed, that last comment echoed, "Maybe next time with Jason's folks, too." The Monroes, wealthy by all appearances, particular about their status. I brushed the thought away. My daughter had made a mature decision. I wouldn't question her integrity. Not yet, anyway. 5 days passed without word from Amanda. My texts went answered with brief replies. "Super busy," and "talk soon." I tried not to read too much into the silence. Adult children have their own lives, their own priorities. I reminded myself of this as I watered my desert landscaping, checked my investments, and attended my weekly poker game with former colleagues. But something nagged at me, a persistent discomfort I couldn't name. On Thursday afternoon, I sat at my desk paying bills online when my cursor hovered over the Facebook bookmark. I rarely used social media. Margaret had been the family photographer, the chronicler of our lives. After she passed, I lost interest in documenting my days or following others. "Just for reassurance," I muttered, clicking the icon. It took 2 password attempts before I gained access to my neglected account. Notifications in the hundreds. Friend requests from people I barely remembered. I ignored them all, typing Amanda Banks in the search bar. Her profile loaded, showing a smiling profile picture from Christmas. I scrolled down. The first post stopped my breath. Amanda, Jason, and 2 older people I recognized as Victor and Elaine Monroe stood on a white sand beach, azure waters stretching behind them. All 4 wore sunglasses and wide smiles. Amanda's caption read, "Perfect Maui sunset with the fam. Rabaka blessed. Yakunta vacation mode." The post was dated Tuesday, 3 days after she canceled our trip. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. Instead, a peculiar calm settled over me as I scrolled further. Another photo. Amanda on a boat, snorkel mask pushed up on her forehead, wet hair slicked back. Behind her, a crew member in a blue shirt with a distinctive logo, the exact logo from the Molokini Crater tour company I had booked. The timestamp, Wednesday, the very day we would have taken that tour together. A third image, the 4 of them at a luau, drinks with paper umbrellas, flower leis around their necks. Traditional Hawaiian dinner with the best in-laws ever. Your mahalo family. I didn't call her, didn't comment, didn't react at all on the platform. Instead, I took screenshots. Right-click, save image, right-click, save image. Methodical, precise. The late afternoon sun sliced through my blinds, casting zebra stripes across my desktop as I created a new folder on my hard drive. I named it simply Hawaii, March. Into it went each screenshot, each preserved moment of the vacation I'd been told was canceled due to financial prudence. Next, I opened my email and found the cancellation confirmations. The Molokini tour, canceled March 4th at 2:17 p.m., full refund processed. The hotel reservation, canceled the same day at 2:32 p.m. I took screenshots of these as well, adding them to the folder. The facts arranged themselves with brutal simplicity. Amanda had canceled our trip, then gone to Hawaii anyway, to the same resort, on the same dates, taking the same tour, with the Monroes instead of me. The betrayal should have burned, should have driven me to angry calls or bitter texts, but as I stared at the evidence arranged on my screen, what I felt wasn't rage but clarity. as if I'd been looking through a smudged window for years, and someone had finally wiped it clean. "So that's how it is," I said to the empty room. The ceiling fan hummed overhead. Outside, a neighbor's wind chimes tinkled in the desert breeze. Life continuing in its ordinary patterns while mine shifted on its axis. I decided not to confront her. Not yet. A reaction born from hurt would only give her the higher ground. Allow her to paint me as overreacting, misunderstanding, clinging. No, this required patience, observation. I added one more file to my folder, a spreadsheet titled Transfers Diaxel SX, where I would document every financial transaction between us over the years. The folder sat there on my desktop, unassuming but potent, a perimeter staked around a truth I could no longer ignore. This wasn't about a canceled vacation anymore. This was about legacy. The morning after my discovery, I pulled a legal pad from my desk drawer and began a chronology. Dates, amounts, reasons. Each emergency that had prompted a transfer from my accounts to Amanda's. I worked with the precision that had served me well in real estate, referencing bank statements and tax records from my meticulously organized files. March 2016, $35,000 for education expenses when Amanda switched graduate programs. November 2017, $20,000 for divorce attorney fees. February 2018, $18,000 for roof and plumbing repairs on her first home. June 2020, $45,000 for down payment assistance. October 2021, $22,000 for a new car after her accident, plus numerous smaller transfers, $3,000 here for property taxes, $5,000 there for unexpected medical bills, $7,000 for a certification course. The individual amounts seemed reasonable in isolation. Together, they told a different story. I didn't begrudge helping my daughter. That wasn't the point. What troubled me was the pattern. Crisis, request, transfer, brief gratitude, silence, repeat. And now, the clear deception about Hawaii. By noon, I had my documentation in order. I picked up the phone and called Angela Ruiz, an estate attorney I'd met through a real estate closing years ago. "I need to make some changes to my estate plan," I told her. Significant ones. Her office was in a converted bungalow downtown, desert landscaping framing a neat brick path to the entrance. Inside, the reception area smelled of leather and paper. Angela greeted me with a firm handshake, her gray-streaked hair pulled back, eyes sharp behind tortoise-shell glasses. "Tell me what's happening, Christopher," she said, once we were seated in her conference room. I placed my folder on the polished table between us. I need to protect my assets from becoming an endless resource for my daughter's lifestyle. For the next hour, I outlined the situation, the pattern of financial requests, the Hawaii deception, my concerns about what would happen to my estate after I passed. Angela listened, occasionally making notes, asking precise questions. "What are you hoping to accomplish?" she asked finally. "I want my assets to have meaning, to do actual good, not just disappear into renovation projects and vacations I'm excluded from." I paused, "and I want to establish clear boundaries now, while I'm alive to enforce them." Angela nodded, then began explaining options. "An irrevocable trust would be most appropriate given your concerns. Once funded, you can't change it or revoke it, hence the name. This prevents anyone from pressuring you to modify terms later. And for the beneficiary? You mentioned you served in the Army. Have you considered veterans organizations?" I hadn't, but the suggestion resonated immediately. My 3 years as a young man had shaped me profoundly, though I rarely discussed that chapter of my life. The Arizona Veterans Shelter Network does exceptional work, Angela continued. They provide housing, medical support, job training, Their overhead is remarkably low. On a legal pad, we sketched the framework. Transfer my house plus 65% of liquid assets into an irrevocable trust benefiting the shelter network. Update my will with conditional terms for Amanda to receive the remaining assets. We'll need to document your mental capacity, Angela noted. If Amanda contests this later, claiming undue influence or diminished capacity, we want clear evidence that you're of sound mind and acting independently. The weight of what I was considering settled over me. Once executed, this couldn't be undone. My home, where Amanda had grown up, where Margaret and I had built our life, would no longer be mine to leave to my daughter. Take a few days to think, Angela advised. This is a significant step. I gathered my folder. I'll consider it carefully. But walking to my car under the harsh Arizona sun, I already knew my decision. Legacy isn't what you fund. It's what you refuse to fund. The time for enabling was over. What I didn't know was that Amanda's next move would come sooner than expected, with far higher stakes. What I didn't know was that Amanda's next move would come sooner than expected, with far higher stakes. 3 weeks after discovering the Hawaii deception, my doorbell rang on a Sunday afternoon. I hadn't heard from Amanda except for a perfunctory happy birthday text the previous week. No mention of Hawaii. No explanation. Just carrying on, as if the lie had never happened. Through the peephole, I saw Amanda and Jason standing on my porch, both dressed more formally than usual for a weekend visit. Amanda clutched a sleek leather portfolio to her chest. "Surprise!" Amanda smiled brightly when I opened the door. "We were in the neighborhood and thought we'd stop by." I knew this wasn't true. My home was a 20-minute drive from theirs, not in the neighborhood, but I returned her smile. "What a nice surprise. Come in." Jason strode in with the confidence of a man accustomed to commanding rooms. Tall and lean with carefully styled hair, he worked in corporate finance. Or so Amanda had told me. Details about his career remained vague, despite their 5 years of marriage. "You're looking well, Christopher," he said, hand extending. His grip was firm, practiced. "Retirement suits you." Amanda set the portfolio on my dining table. "Dad, we have something exciting to share with you. A business opportunity we wanted you to know about first." I prepared coffee while they arranged papers from the portfolio across my table. Through the kitchen doorway, I heard snippets. Third wave coffee. Demographic research. Emerging market. When I returned with 3 mugs, my dining table had transformed into a boardroom. Spreadsheets, glossy photos of industrial espresso machines, and colorful charts displaying upward trending lines covered the surface. "So," Jason began, sliding into what was clearly a rehearsed pitch, "we've been approached by the developers of a prime retail space near the university. They're looking for a signature tenant for their new complex, and they're excited about our concept." "Your concept?" I asked, settling into a chair. Amanda jumped in. "A third-wave coffee shop. Not just coffee, an experience. Artisanal beans, pour-overs, Italian espresso, plus a curated food menu focusing on local ingredients." Jason nodded. "The location is perfect. Student foot traffic, faculty with disposable income, affluent neighborhoods nearby." He slid a market analysis toward me. "Our projections show a 25% return within 18 months. I sipped my coffee. Ironically, the basic supermarket brand I'd been drinking for decades, and examined their materials. The presentation was slick, but something felt off. The market comparisons were thin, citing coffee shops in Seattle and Portland rather than Phoenix. The financial projections showed impressive growth curves without corresponding operational details. "Tell me about the management team," I said. A flicker passed between them. "We've been talking with several experienced operators," Jason replied smoothly. "Nothing finalized yet, but strong interest." "And your involvement would be?" "Strategic oversight," Amanda said. "We'd both keep our current jobs, at least initially." I noted this on my legal pad. "What's the total investment required?" Jason leaned forward. $400,000 for the build-out, equipment, and first-year operating capital. "And you're looking for—" "We've secured most of it," Amanda interjected quickly. "But we need $100,000 to complete the package. Other investors are circling, but we wanted to give you first opportunity." There it was, $100,000. A quarter of their total funding need, conveniently. I asked more questions about lease terms, equipment costs, staffing plans, competitive analysis. With each query, their answers grew vaguer, more generalized. Jason glanced repeatedly at his watch. "The timing is tight," he finally said. "The developers need commitment by Friday, or they'll move to their second choice. Classic pressure tactic. Create urgency. Limit time for due diligence." "I'll need to review this carefully," I said, maintaining a neutral expression. "Give me a week." "Dad, we don't have a week." Amanda's voice took on a familiar edge, the tone she'd used for previous emergencies. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." "Then a thorough review is even more important," I replied calmly. "I'll have my answer by next Sunday." They exchanged glances, disappointment evident, but nodded agreement. As I walked them to the door, Jason made an offhand comment. "Once this takes off, we're looking at some big home projects, maybe even that boat I've been eyeing." Amanda elbowed him slightly, a gesture not meant for me to notice. After they left, I returned to the dining table and stared at their materials. The coffee shop concept might be real, but the financial projections were fantasy. The time pressure, the vague management plan, the round number of exactly $100,000, it all pointed to one conclusion. I picked up my phone and called Angela Ruiz. "I've made my decision," I said when she answered. "Let's finalize the trust immediately." The next week passed in a blur of signatures, notarizations, and carefully considered decisions. Angela arranged for a medical evaluation to document my mental capacity. "A precaution," she explained, "given the significant asset transfer." The neurologist pronounced me sharper than most 60-year-olds, a compliment I found both reassuring and amusing. By Friday, it was done. My house, value $650,000 plus 65% of my liquid assets, had been transferred to the newly formed Christopher Banks Veterans Support Trust. The beneficiary was the Arizona Veterans Shelter Network, with specific disbursement instructions for housing, medical care, and education support. The trust was irrevocable. The assets were no longer mine to retrieve or redirect. My will had also been updated. Amanda would receive a modest $50,000 upon my death, contingent upon her accepting the terms without legal challenge. If she contested the will or trust, she would receive nothing. "Are you certain about this?" Angela asked as we finalized the paperwork. "Once executed, there's no going back." I thought of the Hawaii photos, of 8 years of emergencies, of the coffee shop scheme that would somehow fund home renovations, and a boat. "I'm certain," I replied. On Sunday afternoon, Amanda arrived alone. "Jason had a golf commitment," she explained, settling onto my couch. Her eyes darted around the room, a nervous energy radiating from her posture. "Coffee?" I offered. "No thanks. I'm trying to cut back on caffeine." She laughed, a forced sound. "Ironic. considering our new venture. I nodded and took my seat in the armchair across from her. Between us on the coffee table lay a cream-colored envelope, the logo of Angela's firm embossed in the corner. Amanda's gaze kept returning to it, her anticipation palpable. "I've given your proposal careful consideration," I began. "And?" Her voice lifted with hope. "I won't be investing in the coffee shop." Her face fell. "Dad, please reconsider. This is our future. However," I continued, "I have made some important financial decisions I need to share with you." I slid the envelope across the coffee table. Amanda reached for it eagerly, likely expecting a compromise, perhaps a smaller check than requested. But something. "What's this?" she asked, fingers working to open the flap. "Documentation of my estate planning decisions." She pulled out the papers, her expression shifting from disappointment to confusion as she scanned the first page. I watched her eyes move across the text, stopping, returning to the top, reading again as if the words might rearrange themselves. "You transferred your house?" Her voice was barely audible. "To a charity?" The color drained from her face. Her hands began to tremble as she turned to the second page, then the third. I remained silent, letting the documents speak for themselves. 65% of your investments too?" Amanda looked up, eyes wide. "Dad, this is everything." "Not everything," I corrected. "The remaining assets are addressed in my updated will." I gestured toward the final pages in the envelope. She frantically flipped through until she found the relevant clause. Her lips moved as she read the conditional bequest. When she finished, she slumped back against the couch cushions, the papers limp in her hands. $50,000? If I don't contest anything? Her voice cracked. This is insane." "It's my decision," I replied calmly, "and it's already executed. The trust is irrevocable." "Why?" The question burst from her, raw and wounded. What did I do to deserve this? I didn't mention Hawaii, didn't list the years of financial manipulation, didn't articulate the slow erosion of trust. Instead, I said simply, I'm establishing boundaries that should have been in place long ago. Amanda's shock gave way to anger. She stood abruptly, papers clutched in her fist. Jason's parents won't accept this. They'll fight it. The Monroes have no standing to challenge my estate decisions. They have connections. They know people. The threat hung in the air between us. They'll say you're not competent, that you've been manipulated. I met her gaze steadily. Angela has thoroughly documented my capacity. 3 separate medical evaluations, time-stamped records of my decision process. The trust will withstand scrutiny. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then back at me. Conflict evident in her expression. Keep the documents, I said. Review them carefully. The terms are straightforward. She stuffed the papers back into the envelope and headed for the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. This isn't over, Dad. After she left, I sat motionless in my armchair, the weight of finality settling around me. The house was quiet except for the steady tick of the wall clock, a sound that had marked the moments of my life for decades. I had expected to feel loss or doubt. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Peace. The storm, however, was just beginning. 3 days after Amanda left with the envelope, a FedEx truck pulled up to my driveway. The courier handed me a thick packet requiring signature confirmation. The return address, Blackwell & Associates, Attorneys at Law. Inside was a formal letter on heavy letterhead, addressed to both myself and Angela Ruiz. The language was cloaked in legalese, but the message was clear. Victor and Elaine Monroe, as concerned family members were questioning my mental capacity and suggesting undue influence in the creation of my trust. The letter cited erratic behavior, sudden financial decisions, and estrangement from family as evidence of potential cognitive decline. It requested voluntary psychological evaluation and a temporary freeze on the trust disbursements pending investigation. I called Angela immediately. "They're trying to intimidate you," she said, after I read her the letter's contents. "This is standard pressure tactics. Don't engage directly." That evening, my phone began buzzing with texts from acquaintances. "Heard you've been unwell." "Anything I can do?" from a former colleague. "Amanda mentioned you've been confused lately. Here, if you need to talk." From my neighbor. The whisper campaign had begun, subtle suggestions of my declining faculties spreading through my social circle. I remained calm, responding with brief, lucid messages that would be difficult to misconstrue. Then I took action. First, I scheduled appointments with my primary care physician, a neurologist, and a geriatric psychiatrist, different specialists from those Angela had originally arranged. "Better to have independent assessments," I explained when booking. "I want the most objective evaluation possible." Over the next week, I underwent thorough examinations, blood work, cognitive assessments, memory tests, even a brain scan. The results were consistent. Perfect physical health for my age, no cognitive impairments, excellent decision-making capacity. Each doctor provided detailed reports, which I forwarded to Angela. The second piece fell into place unexpectedly. Ben Ortega, my regular golf partner and a retired judge, called me on a Tuesday morning. "Christopher, I was at Whisper Rock Club yesterday." His voice was measured, deliberate. "Victor Monroe was there with his regular foursome. I was at the bar when they finished their round." I waited, sensing more to come. Monroe had a few drinks, started talking loudly about home renovations and a new boat he's ordering. Something called a Sea Ray Sundancer. Said the money would clear next week, once you signed off on their coffee shop investment. My grip tightened on the phone. Then something interesting happened. Ben continued. "Someone asked if he'd found investors yet. Monroe laughed and said, 'We don't need other investors. Amanda's father is funding the whole thing. He just doesn't know he's buying my boat.' 'Would you be willing to provide a written statement?' I asked. 'Already drafted it. I'll have it notarized this afternoon.' The final element came from Angela's investigator. He'd contacted the other investors mentioned in Amanda and Jason's pitch. None existed. The commercial space was real, but the leasing agent had no record of application from Amanda, Jason, or any coffee shop concept. Armed with this evidence, Angela crafted a response to Blackwell and Associates. The letter included a detailed timeline of my decision process, copies of 3 separate medical evaluations confirming my capacity, Ben's notarized statement, and evidence disproving the coffee shop investment. It concluded with a clear warning. Any continued pursuit of frivolous competency claims would result in a countersuit for legal fees and defamation damages. 3 days later, a brief email arrived from Blackwell and Associates. "Our clients have instructed us to withdraw the concerns raised in our previous communication, pending further review." Angela called with the news. "They've backed off, for now." "For now," I agreed. The direct attack had been repelled, but I knew Amanda and the Monroes wouldn't simply accept defeat. They would regroup, reconsider their approach. The question was, what would they try next? I didn't have to wait long to find out. 4 days after the lawyers retreated, Amanda called. Her voice sounded different, stripped of confidence, almost fragile. "Dad, can we talk? Just you and me?" We met at a quiet coffee shop midway between our homes. The irony wasn't lost on either of us as we settled at a corner table with our drinks. Amanda looked tired, shadows under her eyes, hair pulled back without her usual attention to style. "The Monroes pressured me," she began, fingers nervously tracing the rim of her cup. "This whole thing, Hawaii, the investment, it was Victor's idea. He said it would be better if you weren't there. Said it would complicate things." "And you agreed?" She nodded, eyes downcast. "I didn't want to hurt you. It seemed easier to say it was cancelled than to tell you we were going with them instead." "And the $100,000? Her shoulders slumped further. "There is no coffee shop. Victor wants to renovate their lake house and buy a boat. Jason's been trying to impress him for years." I listened as she continued unraveling excuses and explanations, how she'd felt caught between loyalty to me and pressure from her in-laws, how Jason had changed after their marriage, becoming increasingly entangled in his parents' influence, how she'd convinced herself that one day they would pay me back. When she finished, I remained silent for several moments, watching steam rise from my untouched coffee. "I'm prepared to make an offer," I finally said. Hope flickered in her eyes. "The trust stays as is. That's irrevocable. But I'll amend my will to provide you $50,000 upon my death, with one condition." "What condition?" "You must publicly admit both lies, Hawaii and the investment scheme, in front of Jason, Victor, and Elaine. With my attorney present to witness and notarize your statement." The color drained from her face. "That would destroy my relationship with them." "Perhaps," I acknowledged, "but it would begin to repair your relationship with the truth." 3 days later, they gathered in my living room. Amanda, Jason, Victor, and Elaine Monroe, Angela Ruiz, Ben Ortega, and myself. 7 people arranged in a loose circle, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across my floor. Victor, a broad-shouldered man with silver hair and an expensive watch, immediately tried to take control. "Christopher, this family dispute has gone far enough. We're here to negotiate a reasonable—" "This isn't a negotiation," I interrupted calmly. "Amanda has something to share. After that, there will be documents to sign." I nodded to Amanda. She stood, hands visibly trembling, and faced the group. "I lied about Hawaii," she began, voice barely audible. "We didn't cancel because of money problems. We canceled because we decided to go with Victor and Elaine instead." She paused, swallowing hard. "I knew Dad had already booked the same tour. I knew he was looking forward to it." Jason stared at her, confusion evident on his face. "And the coffee shop investment," she continued, "was never real. The money was for Victor's lake house renovation and a new boat." The room erupted. Elaine gasped. Victor shot to his feet, face flushed. "How dare you?" "I have Ben's sworn statement," I said quietly, placing a folder on the coffee table. "About your conversation at Whisper Rock Club." Victor fell silent, jaw clenched. Jason looked between his wife and his parents, bewilderment giving way to anger. "You used me to scam my father-in-law?" The ensuing 20 minutes brought accusations, tears, and eventually, a heavy silence broken only by the sound of Angela's pen as she finalized the documents. Amanda signed the acknowledgement of my terms. Victor and Elaine refused to witness, storming out with clipped goodbyes. Jason lingered after his parents left, looking lost. "I didn't know," he said to me, then turned to Amanda. "We need to talk. I'll wait in the car." After they departed, Ben shook my hand firmly. "You did the right thing." Angela gathered her notarized documents. "It's done. legally binding. Alone again, I stood in my quiet living room, feeling neither victory nor vindication, just the weight of necessary truths finally spoken aloud. 2 weeks passed. The silence from Amanda was complete. No calls, no texts. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard that Jason had moved out temporarily, was reassessing priorities. The Monroes had left for their lake house, renovation plans apparently postponed. On a clear Tuesday morning, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. My email showed a new message from Angela with the subject line, Trust Update. Inside was a report on the first distributions from the Christopher Banks Veterans Support Trust. The initial funds had secured transitional housing for 2 veterans returning from overseas deployments, a Marine with 3 tours in Afghanistan and an Army medic who'd served in Iraq. Additional money had covered emergency dental surgery for a Vietnam veteran who'd been on a waiting list for over a year. I printed the report and placed it in my desk drawer, tucking it beneath my father's service photo. He'd never spoken much about his time in Korea, but he'd kept his discharge papers neatly preserved in a folder similar to mine. Some traditions continue without conscious effort. My cursor hovered over another tab, a travel booking site. I clicked through to complete a reservation I'd been contemplating for days. 1 round-trip ticket to Maui, 1 ocean view room at the Kayanapali Beach Resort, 1 reservation for the Molokini Crater Tour, not the group option this time, but a semi-private excursion with a marine biologist guide. 1 table for 1 at a clifftop restaurant at sunset. The confirmation emails arrived in sequence. I printed these too, sliding them into a new folder labeled Maui, September. Outside my window, the Arizona desert stretched toward distant mountains. The landscape some found barren had always appeared honest to me. No pretense, no false promises, just clear boundaries between what survives and what doesn't. I moved through the house that afternoon, noting how different it felt now. The same furniture, same photographs on the walls, same sunlight angling across the tile floors, yet somehow lightened, as if an invisible weight had been lifted from the foundations. The house wasn't technically mine anymore. It belonged to the trust. Yet I'd never felt more at home within its walls. Perhaps ownership had always been an illusion, another form of attachment that created vulnerability rather than security. My phone remained quiet. No emergencies, no urgent requests, no subtle manipulations dressed as family obligation. The silence wasn't lonely. It was clarifying. At my bookshelf, I pulled out the Hawaii guidebook I'd purchased months earlier. The dog-eared pages and color-coded tabs remained, but now they represented something different. Not a shared experience, but a personal journey. I added new markers for places I wanted to see on my own terms. Legacy, I realized, isn't what you leave behind. It's what you refuse to carry forward. The patterns you break, the boundaries you establish, the truths you insist upon, these shape what remains after you're gone far more than any inheritance. I poured myself a cup of coffee and settled onto the patio as afternoon eased toward evening. My calendar, once nearly empty, save for medical appointments and occasional golf games, now showed new commitments. A volunteer orientation at the Veterans Center, a photography class I'd been considering for years, lunch with Ben and his wife next week. My thoughts turned to the Haleakala sunrise I'd read about, how thousands gather in pre-dawn darkness at the summit, shivering in the unexpected cold, waiting for first light. How the sun breaches the horizon beyond an ocean of clouds, transforming darkness into gold and purple. How strangers stand side by side in silent witness. Amanda might never understand the gift I'd given her. The chance to recognize that manipulation has consequences. The truth matters. That love without accountability isn't love at all, but merely indulgence. Perhaps someday she would. Perhaps not. Either way, I had done what I could. I closed the guidebook and watched as the desert sunset painted my back garden in amber and rose. In 2 months, I would watch a different sunset from a Hawaiian shore. Alone, but not lonely. At peace, not empty. A sunrise belongs to whoever shows up for it. I would be there.